I love that when you're pointing out that as a parent, we have opportunities that are very disguised a lot of times.
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes they're wrapped up in packages that have thorns on all over them. Yeah.
Everything that we do as parents, everything that we say, and especially do, but say as well,
Mhm.
kids hear it, feel it, and hear it. They know
Mhm.
it, even if you don't say anything. They pick up
Yeah.
on your energy
Mhm.
and they will mimic exactly what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you want to have some sort of a secret recipe to like how to be a good parent, become that which you want your kids to become.
Who better for a child to learn imperfection from than a parent, especially for really hard, painful things? Within the family is a safer place to learn it. Even rejection, abandonment, it's a safer place to learn it and have the experience of it than out there in the world, because within the family there's room and space to stretch out into it and look at it and see what's what.
As a child, oftentimes we create these coping mechanisms in order to, again, feel safe, feel seen, feel appreciated, feel acknowledged, right? Just that I'm here and I'm doing my best to make some difference, right, in the world. And obviously, picking the parents that we trust that will take us there wherever we're going.
All of it teaches us to self nurture rather than blaming and pointing like, oh, you ruined my life, or you made it hard for me to do things because your fear and your da 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 da, whatever. Self nurture. Make yourself feel better rather than, you know, just sitting in like, well, they made me feel bad. We can take care of ourselves and feel better all on our own without saying a word to them.
Beautiful souls, curious minds, good to have you here again with us for another Awake and Aware podcast episode. And in today's episode, Tammy and I are going to talk about parenting and parenthood. And we've all obviously been brought here by some sort of parents and or caretakers and or someone who we rely upon, and how important it is for us to understand the role of a parent and the choice of the child before the birth to pick those specific parents. What kind of responsibility comes with that, and what kind of a karma we are here to process. So let's jump right into the conversation and help me welcome Tammy back. I am very much looking forward to that discussion. So, Tammy, welcome back. Thanks for being here again. Good to see you.
Yes.
And welcome back, everybody. We're going to chat today about parenting and how to remain authentic to yourself as a parent and how to have a way to reach back into your own childhood to find and realize where you yourself might have either been hard on yourself for the parents that you'd had or have had parents that were hard on you on both ways. I think most of us kind of went through it both ways. And how to stay with that authenticity. And so, to me, we pick our parents. They're there for a reason for us to basically figure out our karma, right? So,
Hmm.
if a soul has a karma, wants to learn certain things, certain ways, pick certain parents, to me that makes sense. Whether you um, have the similar belief or not doesn't necessarily matter. I think that you can still find some value in this. And from that perspective, I feel that when I was a child, I looked at my parents and with expectation that they're here to keep me safe. And then what often happens, however, is that we are everything but safe around our parents. And so oftentimes we at the very least pick one parent that is going to be the perpetrator of some sort. So we have a chance to play the role of victim. And then typically another parent that is there to support us in a different way. And then sometimes those of you, those of us who have picked both parents who are really rough or that they weren't there for you at all, that just means that you trust that you can overcome this. You trust your soul that you can get through this. It's the
Mm-hmm.
most strong people as well as most, you know, injured people come out of those kind of families. And if you have had a family or parents or caretakers that had both been amazing to you, or maybe more than two, you know, if you're lucky to have a step parents that are also good to you, then,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so that might be amazing as well. But what it typically happens is not that. So again, it's for us, for the soul to generate that experience that we were hoping to learn and understand, go through. So for
Mm-hmm.
me to stay authentic to the soul that I am as a child, picking these parents later on in my life, realizing that when I was a kid, I signed up, I would say, quote unquote, and signed up for, I'm gonna do anything I can do for you, parents, just so you can keep me safe. So I will become whoever you want me to be. I'll do whatever you want me to do, just so I can be safe. And that is, of course, is an unconscious process for most of us. And there, right there, I feel we give away our freedom, our authenticity, and become, you know, perfectionists, become people pleasers, become whatever, you know, alcoholics or, you know, drug abusers or whatever, the addiction. There is a list, right, to name here.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's got kind of a heavy theme, but wanted to start with uh, at the beginning of where the ego is formed, the personality is formed, the subconscious mind. I feel as early as in childhood. Yeah, I'm curious. What you thinking about that, Tammy?
Yeah, first of all, just with all of life, everything is here for us. And I
Mhm.
100% agree with you. And yeah, we choose. And when we can sit with the idea or belief that everything is here for us, even if there's things that we could say, call a hardship or difficult, or have the perception somebody wasn't here, I very much believe that every generation gets better, more so because of what we would call hard, wrong, trials. Oh, I wish I had that. I wish it wasn't like, the things that we would want to wish away. And we're all doing the best that we can. I am a parent. I've been a step parent. I certainly take full ownership that there's many things that my child could say, "Ugh, I wish," as much as, I've studied, the work that I do and everything that I do now, that it's even so, it's supposed to be that way. And I remember saying to my daughter, I don't know, I mean, she was probably early teens, listen, you're allowed to feel however you want to. You're feeling, they're valid, and I'm never going to tell you that you're wrong or don't feel that way. There is um respect. You can come to me with anything. You can
Mhm.
be mad at me, you can be fed up with me, you can be all of that.
Mhm.
The way you approach me, I expect respect, but you can say anything to me that you need to say, and we can talk about it. And also, I've made apologies to her for any decisions I've made, any actions, anything that came from me that she felt, disrespected, or in any way that she could say, oh, that was hard for me, mom, because you made that. Because I'm not perfect and I'm supposed to make mistakes, but I can take ownership. And I believe that our children deserve respect. I know that I've heard that different ways, that, like, no, a child needs to earn respect. You just respect your elders no matter what. And well, yeah, but they're taught through example, and they deserve the respect of being heard and seen.
Mhm.
Not, yeah, you can go do whatever you want, say whatever you want. No, there's boundaries and limits and all of that. But yeah, if we step back, both as parents and as children, and we say, yeah, that was hard, that was really tough, maybe I'm even mad about it, but
Mhm.
If we can step back and sit in the, okay, you know what? I believe they were doing the best they could. Even if it was, I could sit and say it was the hardest thing in my life. It's still for us. If
Mhm.
we sit with it and we carry it and live in it as we grow and as we mature, we're just causing more pain for ourselves and then the generation that's coming after us and whoever we are, an elder or a guide or a older person in something, any kind of relationship.
Mhm.
So I think ownership, responsibility. I think we can take responsibility without allowing somebody to disrespect us.
Yeah.
I think that it's okay. We can do things wrong and we can make mistakes and call them mistakes and call it wrong or whatever words we want to use. That's what's here for us because how will we grow? We won't expand otherwise
Mhm.
unless we do.
Mhm.
Like we're supposed to. We're supposed to fall off the bike a couple times to learn how to balance. And the more that we can allow that and let go of the, holding on to what we thought was wrong, the more free we are. And then we're better examples of it, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Beautifully said. Thank you. It is really a bit of a dance for all of us,
Mm-hmm.
because there's this world is obviously created of the positives, the negatives, or however we want to say, the goods and bads, right, or rights or wrongs in some sense. But still, it is just a perspective
Yeah.
to have
Mm-hmm.
about the life that you are perceiving yourself, right? And
Right.
so back to that, in that same sense, as a child, oftentimes we create these coping mechanisms, basically, in order to, again, feel safe, feel seen, feel appreciated, feel
Mm-hmm.
acknowledged, right? Just that I'm here and I'm doing my best to make some difference, right, in the world. And obviously picking the parents that we trust that will take us there wherever we're going.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, you yourself being a parent, myself also, yes, I would say that your daughter had the privilege of having a human like yourself or a soul like yourself to guide her through some of this stuff. I mean, yes, you're a human, I'm human. We make mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
so-called mistakes, anyways, and we mess up. And like you said, it's the part of us that is capable of saying, you know what, I'm sorry that I just felt tired and I shouldn't have snapped like that, or whatever, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
circumstance may have been.
Yep.
But just being aware that everything that we do as parents, everything that we say, and especially do, but say as well,
Mm-hmm.
kids hear it, feel it, and hear it. They
Mm-hmm.
know it. Even if you don't say anything, they pick up
Yeah.
on your energy
Mm-hmm.
and they will mimic exactly what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you want to have some sort of a secret recipe to like how to be a good parent, just know that kids will basically do exactly what they see or what they feel.
Mm-hmm.
They won't necessarily listen to what you're telling them.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. But they will
Mm-hmm.
always behave the way that
Yeah.
you have been, the way that you are. So become that which you want your kids to become.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
basically going by example. And as we all know that, or most of us know that in a mind, right? But
Sure.
not as much do we behave that way.
Yeah. And I say, too, who better for a child to learn imperfection from than a parent,
Mhm.
especially for really hard, painful things? Within the family is a safer place to learn it, even rejection, abandonment.
Yes.
Within the family, it's a safer place
Yeah.
to learn it and have the experience of it than out there in the world because
Yeah.
within the family, there's room and space to stretch out into it and look at it and see what's what. Aren't we better to learn to swim in the shallow end where we can stand up and our heads above water than out in the deep end? If the world were the deep end
Hmm.
and within the family unit is shallow water, it's still hard. It's still just as trying, but you can stand up.
Hmm.
And it's the opposite of the pain of saying, no, it hurts worse because it's my parent, it's my sibling, it's my aunt, my uncle, my grand. it's flipped the other way, like, oh no, it's more painful because they did it. Well,
Mhm.
no, maybe it's the safety. It's safer to learn that way.
Yes.
And now when you go out into the world, again, it's all perception. And the younger that we are, that it's we don't know these things as much when we're younger, but as we get older and we sit here as adults now, and we know that we can choose our perception. That's the starting point when I discuss this with people or I'm sitting with a client. Is first of all, remember that you have a choice in your perception, no matter what happened, no matter who it was, no matter the details. If we remember that we have a choice in our perception, then the play out in the story is going to be written a different way, and the
Hmm.
pain is going to be a shorter duration because we know we have that choice of perception.
Hmm.
And I wanted my daughter to know that I'm not perfect, because if I try to do that, well, then she's going to go out into the world and have no idea. She's going
Hmm.
to get blindsided,
Yeah.
because, yeah, we want to be vulnerable and love and out there and all that. And also have an understanding of something. I mean, I can say it in a joking way, but in some ways I'm like, well, I'm divorced. So if anything, she learned, you know, what not to do. Again, it's about perception. It's not like, okay, well, if you're divorced, then your kid's more likely to end up in a, well, no, I believe it's the other way. Depending on us as parents, we can make it the other way and say, hey, look, if we're willing to admit, now knowing what I know now, I maybe I would have approached this a different way. Not
Hmm.
victimhood, not like, oh my God, I'm a mistake and I'm a problem, but I have no regrets. That's the other piece. Know that you have a choice in perception, and don't live in regret. Because if we're in regret about our life, that is more likely to give the idea to a child, oh
Hmm.
no, like
Hmm.
I have to live in regret if I do something wrong or a relationship failure, or
Yeah.
whatever they, you know. So I just, be imperfect, but
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Tell
Again,
your kids what you would do different.
exactly. And that I feel like that's the ticket really. It's that
Mm-hmm.
you keep the conversation authentic and
Yeah.
open as much as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Stay
Yeah.
authentic yourself. That allows you to be authentic with your child to the obviously to the best of their ability of understanding, right? What you're trying to say and portray. And that itself is going to guarantee that whether they have a divorce or not doesn't necessarily matter. To
Nope.
me, a divorce isn't a bad thing or good thing. It is,
Mm-hmm.
my parents have stayed married and I wish they'd divorced. I'm sure that there are many people who, again, had gotten divorced, and their kids wish that they didn't get divorced, right? So these are just situations, right? So we have a choice around this, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
What is the lesson that comes out of that when your marriage ends? How do you tell your child what that meant to you, what that meant to, mommy, to daddy, to basically both in relationship, if a child can understand anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and to the best of their ability anyway. And from that, we learn no matter what, right? So I think that
Yeah.
there isn't really any right or wrong in that sense. Like I said, I mean, because my parents stayed married and they don't really talk to each other. But that's the
Yeah.
thing. If they had talked to each other, if they had acknowledged each other's realities as they went,
Mm-hmm.
things would have been different. They wouldn't have had a life that they do. But both of them are stubborn enough to not want to communicate with one another, and both of them feel hurt in their own way. One blames the other, and back and forth,
Mm-hmm.
and that's their prison.
Yeah.
And as a child looking at that, I'm like, okay, I can see what prison they're in, and they become so accustomed to it and so familiar with it that they'd rather stay in that prison than
Mm-hmm.
do some work and get out of the prison. And this is, I feel like, a theme with most of us as
Mm-hmm.
we age, as we progress in our life, is that a lot of times, people feel stuck in their life. People will
Mm-hmm.
feel desperate. People will feel overwhelmed. People will feel whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And this happens to all of us. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's just that we are choosing it at that moment, be it unconscious choice. We are choosing that to stay there because it feels familiar. That's it. Just because it feels familiar, just because it feels known.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like if you have, silly example, if you put your hands like this and you have one hand on the top and now just do it the other way, it's like, that feels weird, right? Because it's not familiar. But if you hold it that way every day for, an hour or so, after a few days or a week, it'll be equally familiar,
Yes.
right? So it's just becoming a little bit more familiar with whatever it is that we change in our life. And like you said, communication, super, super important. Super
Yeah.
important. If we don't
Yeah.
talk to one another and we don't talk to our children,
Mm-hmm.
how can we, expect that things are actually going to go well in a sense, right? And more
Yeah.
than communication even is like, what do I do? What do I not do? My behavior, right? And my energy, even more so. Because
Yeah.
that's where it starts, with frequency, obviously your energy, frequency, vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And then because of that, we manifest whatever it is into our life. So we make manifest, and that's
Yeah.
what is visible and seen. If I
Yeah.
make a promise to my child, I say something, I make a promise, and then I break that promise, the child is going to learn. He says anything he wants to, it doesn't ever happen. So I'm just gonna not pay attention to that. They're just gonna check out, basically, right? Because there is no consistent not just feedback, but just not consistency in that behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what an opportunity
Mm,
to
mm,
teach our children. Of course, we don't go into it thinking, yeah, I don't really care and oh, it's no big deal if we get of course not.
mm,
However, if parents go through difficult times and we are willing to be examples of compassion, forgiveness, acceptance, what an opportunity if we talk about it and show our kids. What better opportunity? Because it's either that we have the choice to say, I know this is really hard, but this is what's going to happen. You know, dad and I are going to, we're going to split up. We're going to talk about it. We're going to be open about it. And through it, we can either show and teach compassion, forgiveness,
mhm,
fairness, and all of that, or resentment, anger, bitterness by either staying or
mhm,
talking negatively. And we learn how to treat women, men, how to treat companions through our parents. Boys, young, learn how to treat a woman from the father, the male role model. Same for girls. Respect, honor, all of that. That all can happen whether the parents are together or not. It's our choice. There's no mistake that's like done and like oh you can't recover from that. Oh, you blew it. You blew
yeah,
it. You're
yeah,
done. Just write yourself off. No. Like we can be that example and say, listen, I'm human and you're human. It's okay. It's okay. Go out in the world and be human. And even if something uh negative goes down, okay. All right. Here we are. Here we are. We're not victims and we can still love one another. And as they do it and then they learn through us, they learn their capacity. I mean, that's how we learn what we're capable of is by doing things. And yep, it might be hard and, holidays are split and, okay, but, maybe even more people are going to come into your life, you know, and you're going to have double. And so we can talk about it. We can respect the fact that something's ended, but you can use it as an opportunity to enhance that capacity, whereas you wouldn't have done it before. It's an opportunity, as is everything.
yeah, beautiful. Yeah. There is a lot to gain from, like I was saying, either divorce or of the
Hmm.
parents or learning from them staying together while they possibly contemplating divorce but never divorced, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
always something to learn, right? I feel that it is important to also acknowledge that we as parents are, humans, and equally so, our parents also were humans, just step away from, yes, that's my mom, that's my dad, they should love me, and they don't, and I'm resentful of them. So step away from that. They're, whoever, John and Jane, and they are humans, and they make mistakes, and they are, they were in love at some point. Maybe they're now not in love anymore, but they're kind of like coexisting, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
even the coexistence may be important and maybe serving you as a child of theirs somehow. Okay. Find what it is that you're getting out of that, what you're learning with that, right? For me, that's looking at both of my parents as human beings. I can see their own, difficulties that they had to go through as them being children, right? And doesn't necessarily excuse the behaviors that happen. Let's say, was a lot of you guys get, beaten and worse by your
Mm-hmm.
parents, and at the very least mentally abused, right? And that happens all the time. And I like when Peter Crone points out that abuse is anything that is not love.
Mm-hmm.
So when there isn't love, it already automatically falls in the category of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And so while it may be mild on one end and then, more severe on another end, it's they are human beings. And yes, at that moment, maybe they meant to hurt you. But because they're your parents, they really don't actually mean to do that. They just don't know that. They're not aware of it. So no parent would really actually feel good about um, torturing their children unless they're not with it. If their mind is gone, then sure, whatever else may happen, right? But if
Mm-hmm.
they're with it in some sense, but unaware, at the
Mm-hmm.
moment it might happen. So that is there's abuse, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of times, like I said, the abuse is more psychological than anything.
Mm.
Not saying that there isn't physical abuse, there is a lot of that. And
Mm-hmm.
especially, for those parents who are post-war, right? Parents, and or later, even the
Yeah.
Second World War, that is anyway. So, but I know there's all
Mm.
sorts of wars in between, but in that sense that
Yeah.
that behavior was very normal because there was a lot of trauma happened during the war, of course. So my parents were post-war children, and
Mm-hmm.
they had, difficult lives themselves. And
Mm.
that's just, they did what they knew to do. They did their best. Their parents were traumatized as well, those who survived the war, right? So in that sense, just look at your parents as humans with their names, with their personalities, and not to excuse them, as you were saying about forgiveness. We can go into that a little bit too if it calls for, but I also want to point out that if you feel you need to forgive your parents, it's your own judgment of them. So the forgiveness really just goes for you. It's a self-forgiveness every time. Yeah, in that sense, they do what they do. How I understand what they did, how I felt it affected me, what they did, is on me. Yeah. And of course, they had a hard time, and I can understand that and not judge them for it. So in that sense, I don't need to ask for their forgiveness, or I don't need to get their forgiveness in any way. I just
Right.
forgive myself for letting myself be swayed by whatever I've learned from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's written, I mean, in scripture, A Course in Miracles, there is no forgiveness because there isn't anything wrong that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And when the situation, circumstance that
Mm-hmm.
we would call a source of needing forgiveness, it's a call to your point, yes, to self forgive and to self nurture.
Mm-hmm.
Just as with anything, okay? So something happens and we're hurt, we're upset, okay. Acknowledge it, okay, fine, all right, you're having feelings about it. You're not denying that this thing just took place. Okay. And it's what we do after. Look within. Okay, this happened. I do this with anyone, with a situation. If I refer to something, so if I'm talking to a teacher, talking to a therapist, I don't use the person's name. I say the pain that they're in, whatever the source of their fear, their pain. Yeah, I felt pain from what came from that. Because, and then it, for me anyway, and I've seen some people that it helped to look at this way, is that it removes the person, because that's what really hurts, right? Is you, that person in front of us, especially somebody that we're in a loving relationship with. How could you hurt me? How could you say this to me that hurt me? And we're viewing that, looking at that person. And so now we're focused on this being in front of us that we're committed to loving. And we think, but if we remove that a little bit and just say their pain, we're all doing the best that we can for where we are and what we know within our own being. And so if something happens, like and I'll go back to, like my daughter, this happened with her. Like, I can remember a situation that I was tense. I was just tense, and it was dinner time, and I was getting stuff done, but there was stuff going on, and I was wound up, and I dropped a food. I like off the plate, dropped it on the floor, and I was upset. Like, I didn't yell at her or anything, but I was just, and she's like, Mom, it's only a piece of whatever it was. There's more over there. And I stopped and looked at her, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're right. And she was making a good point, and I wanted her to know that she was making a good point. And I think that that helps kids mature, because if she can say something and, pull me out of a reaction and make a point, I want her to know that she just did that. And me as the mom stopping and saying, yeah, you know what? You're right. I mean, she was young. She was a young teenager. And it was me showing her respect. She wasn't rude about it. She wasn't being fresh. She was right. She just said it off the cuff. And I was proud of her because she's right. And doesn't that make a better chance for her to be more forgiving of herself, less likely to react and lash out, more likely to apologize? Like, if we think about everything in the big picture, like everything matters. That was a tiny little thing. I dropped food on the floor. It's no big deal. But it was a big message and a big lesson. And if we just try to do that a little bit, because, our parents, they're behaving from wherever they are, and maybe they're afraid. And a parent who's stuck in that fear and the way of their life and operating that way, a child coming in that's all bright and shiny and like, no, oh my God, no, it's good. That's frightening, because if a parent's closed off because they think that pain is going to come or something wrong, and they think they have to live that way in this small way, and then a child is coming in living in this big way, yeah, they might silence the child, but it's not punishment and telling the child they're wrong. They're afraid because they're fearing that their child's now going to go out and get hurt because if they live that way. So they're not silencing the child because they want them closed off. They're just behaving from what they know. That's all. That's all. And they deserve compassion for that. And if they're living in fear, like, we all have our own choice, and they're living in fear, and yeah, there might be another way, but it's the last thing than kind to force them out of it. Like, okay, be an example of it, but maybe they'll come out of it and maybe they won't. But at least don't judge them and shame them for it and call them bad, because they live a certain way. None of us deserve that. And we can still go live the way we want to live. And again, all of it teaches us to self-nurture, because it's rather than blaming and pointing like, oh, you ruined my life, or, you made it hard for me to do things because your fear and your da 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 da, whatever. Self nurture. Make yourself feel better rather than, you know, just sitting in like, well, they made me feel bad. You know, we can take care of ourselves and feel better all on our own without saying a word to them.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing
Mm,
all that. This is, yeah, I love that
mm-hmm,
when you're pointing out that as a parent, we have opportunities that are very disguised a lot of times.
mm.
Right?
Yeah, sometimes they're wrapped up in packages that have thorns on all over them. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So
Mm,
when your daughter points out that something to you, and then you're as a parent, you point out back to her, validate what she did
mhm,
and how that shifted your perspective. That's amazing. That really
mhm,
is truly amazing. Like
yeah.
most parents don't do that. Most parents don't.
Mm,
And I think, I
mhm.
hope, at least I feel like there is a lot more parents like that these days, because as a
Yeah.
society, obviously we're progressing point by point.
Mhm.
Although sometimes it feels like digressing a lot of times, but we are doing, I think, better than we've done before again,
Oh, yeah.
and as a
Mhm,
society anyway. But it's so important to validate, and especially your child, so validate their reality, just so you're reinforcing, like you were saying, reinforcing
mhm,
that this was them saying this and it shifted your perspective. They did that. That's
mhm,
powerful,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
being in
Yeah.
power that way. So that's, yeah, beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. Mhm,
So, in a sense of being parent and finding this opportunity to learn as a child or as a parent yourself, but as a
mhm,
child, when we're growing up, coming back a little bit to where we started, is in sense that as a child, at some point, I will decide that I want to please my parent. And
mm,
so for me, what has happened, and this is again, it forms the personality, it forms the ego, which
mhm,
again, I repeat myself from previous podcasts as well, is that ego isn't bad. So if I say ego, I don't mean to, like put down the personality that we are, like
yeah.
kill the ego. Yeah, I mean, sure, the ego is going to die eventually because you find more love, right? So you just get
Mhm,
overpowered, kind of the scales tipping kind of thing. But the ego is needed, right? We need the personality. That's how we survive here, right?
mhm,
And so a lot of times the behavior that we learn, the compensations that we learn from our parents, or from growing up with our parents, is going to basically drive our life. And we don't realize that that's what's happening. And just want to point that out because obviously I've been in a grip of that myself for many, many, many years,
mhm,
not realizing that's what was happening, that I was behaving as though I'm not good enough was the label saying that because I wouldn't get attention from my father at all. So I thought, well, I must not be good enough if he's not paying attention to me, right?
mhm,
My mom was super, super busy with four kids and without father's help. And so she didn't have much time, although she spent as much time as she could with us, on the contrary of my father. But it was, I gave it also, I thought, okay, mom also doesn't have time for me,
mm,
so I must not be good enough. But I gave that label to myself in that at that time, right? And until I realized that, not much has changed in my life. But when I realized that, everything changed in my life.
yeah.
It's like this
Yeah.
straight up ascension process. Like you were saying,
Mhm,
leveling up, he's just going upwards right away. It's like rapid, like rocket,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And because a lot of things changed. And typically this kind of thing happens when you have the revelations like this happen when you are in crisis, when you
Yeah.
are in chaos.
Mhm,
So the crisis, the chaos, again, we spoke about this before. It's an opportunity for us to ascend, really.
mhm,
And that the choices always ours. We can miss that, or we can actually go with it. And
mhm,
I feel that as a child, of course, for many years, we form this personality, this ego, that eventually creates a certain box, certain reality that we call our reality.
right.
And we make decisions in our future based on the label we've given ourselves as a child.
Mhm,
So the past hurts inform future fears. I love that quote because that speaks to exactly what I'm trying to say here, in the sense that we create these realities of our own from what we've learned, where we felt unsafe, where we felt hurt, where we felt wronged, where we felt abandoned and or punished and or beaten, whatever,
Mhm.
traumatized in any way.
Sure.
And from that perspective, we live our lives today.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I was curious for yourself as well as for audience out there is that, have you noticed that in your life, and how much does it affect your today's behavior, that those patterns that you created as a child?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's the paradigms that are created, which are the, the beliefs of the patterns to be true,
Yeah.
right? And so whatever seeds we plant will grow. If the seeds are perceptions, then those are gonna grow. I as well, to your point, like, oh, I must not be good enough. If somebody's angry or not showing love or distant or whatever, as a child and young children, I mean, 5 to 7 in formative years, it's natural that the child make everything is there. It's them. It's their fault, no matter what. It doesn't. It doesn't even matter how everybody is. Parents split up. The child will find a way that it's their fault.
Mhm.
And if we continue that and we don't take on this responsibility of self and realize, okay, other people are having their experience, but that doesn't have to be where I get my seeds from. We can form and plant the seeds of what we want. So if we think about, okay, this just happened and it doesn't feel good and I don't like it and I don't feel worthy. I feel like I'm not good enough because of whatever we're not receiving. So that negative. Well, if we turn that around and say, knowing what we don't want shows us what we do want. And so if we turn that around and say, okay, well, that doesn't feel good. I don't want that. What do I want? Those are the seeds we want to plant. Now, the younger that we are, that this comes with maturity. It comes with, right? And, I can sit here now at 55 and know, right? And that's the greatest part of it all. Because without the times of the not wanted, we would have never gone and looked. We would have never reached further into what we do want. We would have never tried to plant other seeds.
Mhm.
So again, returns back to everything is for us and all of that. And I know that that's, I say it very lightly and it's like it is easy, but it's a choice. If we choose to not be victims of it, then it doesn't have to be that way.
Mhm.
And everything else can stay the way it is. My biggest encouragement is that as we're choosing what we do want and the seeds we want to plant for what we want to grow, to do that without having an expectation agenda of, well, they need to change. They need to be different before I can go plant seeds. Like, because you'll, that's where we'll be stuck. If we come into like, okay, no, I want something to be another way. I, desire this. I'm going to self nurture. I'm going to do these things. But if we do that and are demanding that the ones that were sources of what we didn't want and we're holding, it'll point us to like, oh, I'm holding a grudge, blame, all that, the bitterness, resentment. That's a very definite, very strong pointer to let us know if we're in bitterness, resentment, holding somebody else responsible for how we feel.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
you're gonna you're gonna
Yeah.
find out right there. You know.
Yes, 100%. You totally will. And that's again, um, the reason that you would feel that way is because you have some evidence from the past saying your ego, where your personality is saying that you're not safe.
Yeah. Hmm.
Back
Right.
to that again. So the reaction
Hmm.
happens
Yeah.
because the ego feels unsettled, because the
Yeah.
ego feels scared, or the part of that personality. Our mind, our personality, our ego will find the excuse, will find the workaround, will look for that because of the insecurity that lies within it. So the same brain that is coming up with a protective mechanism for the problem that the same brain has created.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
problem was created by the mind itself. That's a brain. So problem was created by the mind, and the same mind is now trying to solve it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, didn't Einstein say that yeah, you can't solve a
Same
problem with the
problem with the
same
mind.
mind that
Yep,
created it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
You, and yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And that falls into the self-responsibility and
Hmm.
ownership and not non-victimhood. It's always like a caution or like a warning code on things, like when you make the choice to have a new perception and to, not be a victim and all of that, the ego, the part of the ego that, needs to stay alive and wants to run the show,
Hmm.
right? The opposite of leading from the heart. When we lead from the heart, then, love leads, right? But if
Hmm.
the ego's gonna be like, no, 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 like you should
Careful.
be, you should be mad and don't, no, 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 you better make
Right.
sure you blame them and hold
Yeah,
them responsible because you wouldn't even have to do any of this work if it wasn't for them and blah,
yeah,
all this.
yeah, yeah.
And it typically tends to 100% of the time to usually be louder when you're
Yes.
like, when you're starting, like it works harder because
Yeah.
it's like, uh-oh, oh no, they're not gonna need me anymore, and I
Yes.
need to stay alive, so the ego kind of
Yeah.
plays that way. Yeah.
Yes. I love that you point that out too, is that the ego is, if it has to stay alive, it is made up, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's a made up
Mm-hmm.
personality, character, being, right? So the reality that we experience through this platform of our physical body
Mm-hmm.
is based, of course, on what the ego personality creates. At the same time, the most creative part of our being in our reality actually is the essence of us, the love, the consciousness, the God, the again, whatever name you want to put on
Yeah.
that, label
Mm-hmm.
that. But that's where the actual creativity comes from. The ego, mostly the part of us that is basically fictitious, that's made up, is there to is trying to survive, which is why a lot of times when something feels so awkward, so I'm just gonna stay away from this
Mm-hmm.
self-help stuff because it feels a little too scary, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's ego saying that because it fears it will be found.
Yes.
It fears it will be found and then pointed out that it's not real.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was made up, it was created, and it feels like it's us. And in that sense, again, going back to childhood, that's when it originates. That's when we start with that.
Mm-hmm.
And because we don't have, as a human being, we don't have fully developed brain as a child, we may sense that that's what's happening, but we
Mm-hmm.
don't know that. So it becomes basically unknown, unconscious, subconsciously stored behaviors.
Right.
And from that, then we spend the rest of our life trying to uncover all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a
it's like
brilliant
unraveling,
game.
the unraveling, right? Yeah, it's like
Right.
walking yourself back out of it. Yeah, and I mean, it's said so often, like it's you know, life is unlearning,
Yeah.
it's because fear is usually louder, and intuition and love is soft and quiet.
Yeah.
And if I'm asked, how do you know the difference between, your intuition or your heart
Hmm.
giving you a message, sending you something, or ego? Intuition, it never speaks in doubt,
Hmm.
fear, ever. There's never
Hmm.
it's clear and it's always love. There's no doubt like, oh, what if, I don't know, I don't know. None of that is there. Ego is, there's doubt behind it. It's covered in it. It's
Mhm.
it's dirty and sticky with doubt. But we only learn that if we're presented with it. So again, it's a blessing and it's a good thing, because that's how we grow. And growing pains hurt. I mean, remember as a kid, like I can remember waking up and, oh, the pain of growing pains in your legs and your calves, like it hurts.
Mhm.
But it's stretching and growing, and that all of it, we're all stretching and growing, you know?
All the
Yeah.
time.
Hmm.
Yeah, whether you're doing it consciously in the gym or something, or you're doing it unconsciously, and
Hmm.
you're basically
Yeah,
growing all the time. It's just
sure.
that's what we're here to do, to grow,
Hmm.
to learn, to experience, to understand, and share.
Yeah.
So,
We're supposed to expand. I mean, the alternative is death.
yeah, 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 and then
If we're not expanding and growing,
yeah,
then there's no life.
correct.
It's lifeless.
Yes, it's the reason for us that we're living, really. Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, raison d'être, as they say in French, the reason to be.
Mm.
So yeah, I thank you. This is great, and I'm truly appreciative of my parents. I'm appreciative of my kids and the life experiences that come from that, be it difficult at times and be it amazingly beautiful at other times.
Mm.
So I encourage everybody out there, take it with a grain of salt
Yeah.
as much as you can, open to experiences and just let yourself shine. Let yourself
Mm.
be the most authentic being that you can be in the moment. And just
Yeah.
live moment by moment into the authentic self that you can be, that you are
Hmm.
really. And
Yeah.
like you pointed out, Tammy, noticing kind of where that sticks and sit with it, let it go, breathe through it, let it
Hmm.
go, learn from it, let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
I would encourage to just imagine that anytime that something comes that has the potential, and you could take the path of anger, regret, all that,
mhm.
just for a second, just pause. And just in your own mind, you don't have to tell anybody, you don't have to declare it to anybody. Just sit for a moment and pause and say, what if this is happening to create something bigger within me?
Mm,
What if this is here to create something bigger that I don't even know and I can't even imagine yet? And just leave it with yourself. Let it just come into you and sit with it. And if you do that, I guarantee you, I guarantee you will, it might not be in that moment, but things will start to transpire. If you open your mind to it, it's like, to plant a seed, you have to put it in the ground. So give it a chance. Just plant it in the ground and see what grows. And I guarantee that something good will come of it. Has to.
beautiful.
It's law. It has to.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for
Mm,
all the
thank you.
wisdom, Tammy. Really appreciate you for being
You
here
too.
again.
Yeah.
And again, so if you're interested into hearing more of this kind of talk, subscribe, like, and leave us some comments.
Hmm.
And we would love to hear from you, whatever it is that you're curious about.
Yeah.
And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. But until
Yes.
then, take
Yes.
good care of you all,
Hmm.
and love of peace and blessings to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you again so much for joining us for today's episode. It was lovely to have you present, and I trust that you have learned something. Perhaps you could relate into some of the discussion that we had today with Tammy. And if you really enjoyed it, give us a like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button so you know when the next episode comes out. Should you feel inspired by something that we discussed and or would like to ask a few questions, send something into the notes. We'll be happy to take a look and answer that and or talk about it on our next podcast. In the meantime, take good care of you again, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until then, stay awake, aware, and Take good care of you.